Wednesday Club under the flagship of NIPM Kerala chapter. Kerala chapter of NIPM with more than 1,200 individual members and 47 institutional members on the rolls is one of the most vibrant chapters of the NIPM. It is an Indian body of professional managers engaged in the profession of human resources and industrial relations. We have under the HR Carnival 5 major programs, that is DEI, Launcher, Knowledge Hunt, Business Quiz, and also audio rooms. So HR Summer Carnival of 2023 is running during this period. So to recognize the best practices among the organization from pan-India basis and to create awareness among other nuanced organizations, NIPM Kerala chapter is organizing DEI competitions and certification program, which will be run between February to June 2023. Launcher is a designer platform for women HR professionals, which is currently running right now. This has been curated with a variety of HR masterclasses, competency assessments, and exposure to cutting-edge HR tech tools. Knowledge Hunt is another experiential learning platform curated under, again, Summer Carnival of HR 2023 for business school students in pan-India basis to learn about business concepts and develop important skills. Another one which is currently running right now is Business Quiz, which is providing a venue for the participants from pan-India and corporates and students from business schools across India to compete with their peers, which might inspire them to perform better and aspire for perfection. Live audio rooms in Clubhouse, Twitter, and LinkedIn is to provide dynamic and interactive way of sharing and gaining knowledge. This is all about the NIPM HR Carnival 2023 for you. So we have gathered here for a panel discussion between 3 people out here with a moderator, of course. Before we begin, I would like to welcome our respected panel members to the forum. Our panel number 1 is Usha Cherel. She is the Director of HR at Reflections Info Systems and has almost 25 years of experience in HR. She has worked with major companies such as IBM, Infosys, Bosch, CGI, KPMG, etc., handling global portfolios. We welcome you, ma'am, to this forum.
Thank you.
Our second panel member is Arun George Philip, who is handling global talent acquisition, compensation and benefits, as well as HR operations for Canada at IBS Software Services. He has close to 25 years of experience in HR and has majorly worked in UST Global and IBS Software, handling global portfolios. We welcome you, sir, to this forum. Our third panel member is Santosh Kumar, who is heading HR and InvestNet. He has got 28 years of experience in HR and have worked majorly in Tata Autocom Systems Limited, UST Global, etc., handling global portfolios again. We welcome you, sir, to this forum. All 3 of you have raised the benchmarks for hard work and dedication in the society, and it would be wonderful to hear from you. I would also like to welcome our moderator, Sharika Nair, who is currently associated with IBM as Strategic VP HR for Cochin. Thank you, Sharika, for joining us. Without further ado, let us begin with panel discussion. Over to you, Shari. In between, in case you have any questions, please post them in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prasita, for that warm welcome. And it's my pleasure to moderate such a great panel session today. And on behalf of NIPM InfoPark chapter, I once again welcome each and everyone to this exciting session on Talent in Technology 2023 and beyond. So with the line of eminent speakers that you've all heard about today, I'm sure each one of us will take away great insights and adapt to the ever-changing work model that we are all, coping up each day. So I would like to start with a statement that every company has become a software company today. And why? Because technology has become so much essential to survive and thrive in any type of economy, especially during downturns and declines like, the ever noted COVID-19. So based on this trend, as we see and adapt in no particular order, let me ask the first question to Arun. Arun, do you really see a change in talent that has an inclination to technology in today's world?
An inclination towards technology. I think over the past many years, especially when you I'll start from the fresher point of view. Engineering students were why did a lot of freshers take engineering as a course? Because job opportunities. And even when you complete your 4-year engineering course, which are the opportunities awaiting them? It's technology companies. Even a mechanical engineering student or electronics and communication, electrical engineering, they don't get opportunities in their core field that they have specialized in, and they compromise and start with a software company. So in India, especially, we have seen that if you want a job after your undergrad, it's engineering, and if it's engineering, it's mostly a software job that is awaiting you, because tech companies have flourished in India. So there's an inclination towards tech jobs, but that's on one side, on the job opportunities. On the other hand, people also realize that the tech space is changing drastically. So unless you have the penchant to keep on upgrading yourself, has that motivation to study continuously, they'll fall behind. So a lot of people start, whether they like it or not, but a lot of people fall off in between. First of all, you don't have the passion to do it. They have not chosen that career because they love doing that job. They have chosen it because there's no other opportunity awaiting them. So which means you're dealing with a workforce who are not passionate, who don't have the drive. They drag themselves to office every day, and that's what you see. The ones who are passionate, who have chosen that career because they love doing it, they are a class apart. And it's very visible after 3-4 years in the organization. Some people stand out. They are the fast trackers, where they move up. You don't have to push them. They study, they keep abreast of what technology changes are happening. They are the super performers, but others would not be able to keep up with the kind of pace that the tech space goes through. So
yeah, on that note, I think very valid point. Other streams other than technology has not been talked much about, in this newly changed world. I agree. So on that note, maybe Usha, if I can ask you, is it safe to say that the demand for talent in technology will continue to grow in 2023 and beyond?
Yes, Sarika, I think all of us have been reading about what's happening in industry. On the one side, we have a large number of people being let go, but on the other side, we also find huge numbers being hired, but in different technology and in niche technology. So if you have a particular skill that is rare, or if you have some deep domain expertise, then you're still sought after, and people are going after talent which is unique and differentiated. I think the industry goes through a cycle every couple of years where either people are forced to upskill or they fall behind. And those who keep abreast of what's coming up, and by luck or by design, if they pick up the required skills, there's always a huge market awaiting them.
Right. Yeah, that's a valid point. And Santosh, do you think, as we all know, the global tech war is at its peak, right? I mean, in this regard, like Usha said, there are a lot of people getting hired also in this tech layoff time of the year. But in this regard, do we suppose that tech hiring challenges has also increased recently? What do you think, Santosh?
Yeah, if you look at that, you can generalize that question, or that question kind of can be tailored to specific type of business you are in. You know that. For example, large consulting companies have got their own unique technology hiring challenges. Niche product companies have their own different kind of technology hiring challenges. startups will have their own different challenges in attracting and hiring technology challenge, because all these kind of businesses depends on what kind of life cycle they are in their business, needs certain kind of kind of a talent. So that brings up different kind of challenges when it comes to hiring challenges. But in general, if you look at that, if you get some fact, so India is one of the fastest digitizing economy in the world, and McKinsey reports says second fastest digitizing economy, just behind US. That brings up quite a lot of technology opportunity to propel that, isn't it? So another prediction say that by around 2027, we would be, the technology industry would be producing around 1 trillion USD, kind of a growth. And just to sustain that, we need around 65 million jobs to do that. So overall, there could be temporary hiccups where companies are downsizing because of the economic realities, not because of automation taking over the jobs, etc. But generally, kind of this, the inflation cycle catches up, and there could be some business pressures, revenue pressures. Then people let go some of the technology talent, but that doesn't really represent the talent appetite for the industry. There's always a war for right talent. There's always, that's my experience. Even some of the most so-called recession years, for right talent, for your top performers, if you look at that, if you look at their typical performance bell curve in your industry, your top performers, there is always kind of demand in the industry. So that's a reality. So challenges will be there continuously, and people have to invent and reinvent their talent hiring strategies continuously.
Sarika, maybe I'll add one additional point to what Santosh just said.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it, when the going gets tough in the economy, for example, so-called economy is going down, banks are collapsing in the US, things are not going well. The real good talent still are most sought after. There's a war for the good talent. What happens to the others? They might not get an opportunity when the going gets tough all around. Now, when things are not going well in the economy, companies become a lot more choosy. For example, if you have X number of open positions, they would specify to their internal hiring managers saying that we want the best of the best of the best. If you have to have X positions open, we want the best in the market. That's it. So, however, that focus changes when you're in a boom and you lap up whoever is available, and that's where the mediocre and the not so good talent also gets lapped up. That's an aberration. But when the going is tough all around, that's where the real talent shines. They still have the 3 or 4 opportunities or offers at any given point in time. It's the others which would have a tough time.
Yeah, right. I mean, like Santosh said, India is the much sought after market in the coming eras. So having said that, I mean, when you said still the hiring challenges would be there, but the hiring is going on. So if I can ask, Arun, I was wanting to ask this in my mind. So handling different portfolios, global portfolios as well, as part of your profile, do you see a change or a shift in the so-called tech layoffs more in any part of the country, any part of the world for that matter? Or is it low somewhere? Is it higher somewhere? And what could be the reason that you have noticed? Because, for this tech layoffs, so-called.
So whenever there's this starts trickling in from the Western world, you start hearing about ABC and Meta and all that laying off thousands of people. They're highly profitable companies. So when the boom time kicks in, they take a lot of people, which is not sustainable when the business goes down. and they, it's very easy for them to lay off. And like how the economy is all intertwined, meaning I think India is kind of safe, but then as long as you have clients that you're supporting in the Western world, you're still prone to those challenges. But the last 2-3 months, it's been we've been reading about banks collapsing in the US. So all the tech companies who have been supporting the financial institutions, I'm sure would have a tough time. And I've personally, people have reached out to me from IT companies who have been focused on the financial sector, saying that, I fear that and I'm talking about HR people, okay? I feel that, I might get laid off in the next couple of months. Do you think you have an opportunity there? Because we are in a different vertical altogether. And these are Indian companies who have people in the US, okay? So, as long as India, India is a dominant player in the tech space now, and I think the global players acknowledge that fact too. But we are also not immune to what happens because all our clients are in the Western world. So, but I think we are more resilient. The layoffs start in the Western world, but slowly, I started hearing about in India too, but not in the kind of numbers that we hear from the West. I think Indian companies are also more, I think that you put a little people perspective also when it comes to hiring, as well as, when it's time to let go. I think they are much more people centric compared to the companies out here. um, you know I can certainly talk from my own organization how we look at that aspect. So that would be the very last option. If everything else, all the strategies don't work, maybe that would be the last rung that we would probably look at. But those are not the first things. But over here, it's not that. That will be the first step. It's easy.
Yeah, Sharik, I think that is, all this stuff, these are all very chain reaction. Generally, the biggest variable in this US federal rate hike, and your credit line become suddenly very expensive. You can't fuel your business growth, your own money. You need fund. You need to borrow heavily. So once it's kind of US federal rate typically is kind of happen. It's a reaction to inflation rate. That's the best way free market invented to contain your inflation, basically. And then there's a chain reaction, and this cycle happens in free market frequently. It's not only IT companies. That happens across. If you go to any hotels near InfoPark, you can feel the heat. So it doesn't leave, when there is a downturn, it doesn't leave any industry out. Everybody is impacted. But luckily, sometimes Indian outsourcing industry gets benefit out of it. What Arun was saying, that in US companies, a little more show urgency in cost controlling measure because the saving potential is very high. You can hire somebody, isn't it? So sometimes you see a little paradox where a certain part of the world is facing layoff, but India is hiring because maybe some of the jobs are being transferred to this part of thing. So it's very difficult to see a completely a pessimistic pattern everywhere. Some are more affected, some are less affected, but it's a chain reaction, and it's kind of get extrapolated, and it has to go through that complete cycle before the credit lines are cheaper. You have more fund to fuel the business growth. For example, if you look at India is the third largest tech startup country, and there was tremendous tech boom because credit was cheap, isn't it? The fund was coming along, and suddenly something bad happened, everything stops, and startups are seriously impacted. And unfortunately, some of the employees would be on the receiving end. So economics is a reality.
I know. Yeah, I think we have spoken a little more about having the talents, acquiring and attracting the talents. Usha, if I could hear from you, Similar to how acquiring new talents become a challenge, we also have seen companies. I mean, you yourself are coming from, I think, a couple of companies like IBM who have not taken tough decisions so far. So, are these companies, focusing on retaining existing workforce as well? And is that a pressing concern for businesses? And why do you think so?
Oh, she's on mute.
She's on mute.
Yeah.
Usha is on mute.
Sorry, Sarika. I was saying two sides of the same coin. On the one hand, when you want to hire and acquire the best in the market, you also want to retain the best that you already have. And if people look at the short term, they sometimes see their colleagues being hired at double what they get in terms of salary. But the ones who are really core and key talent, hopefully the company communicates to them about what is the longer term career path that they have within the organization and what are the potential, either the upskilling efforts or the expanded roles or the plum assignments that are there for them. And that makes them stay back in the hope of future growth and future growing with an organization and the benefits that come along. At any given point in time, I think the pressure or the war for talent is on. So there would be an X number of companies vying for your own internal talent. And a good HR person will be looking out to try and retain their best, either through some strategic intervention or at least classifying people as top talent and doing something about it. In our own organizations, like some of the larger organizations that I've been a part of, we try to do something called career conversations with those who are top talent to make sure that they, as well as their managers, their mentors, know the path that's up ahead. In our vision, the long term is as much as 5 years. If you know what's going to happen for you in the next 5 years, if there are some concrete steps being taken, that would be the first starting point. Make sure that the best of your internal talent stays with you.
Right. So maybe, connecting from what Usha said, maybe this is a common question for all three of you. From an HR standpoint, as people who engage with people and with business on a regular basis, what do you think should employees, be it at a very, middle level or a senior level, must do to make them relevant in this very dynamic, state of time today?
So I think the future of work is will heavily reward one particular quality, that is learning agility. That tops the chart. So you can ask now, what am I good at? But that doesn't stay forever, isn't it? Because the rate of change is so fast. And more pertinent question would be how fast I can learn, and how do I nurture my curiosity, and how do I process information and have a reasonable hold on which direction the talent market is heading. So that should be a predominant a kind of item in everyone's thought, isn't it? It's not it's not a linear career anymore. The type of different type of job people go through in a career span would increase. By next generation, I don't know, we all had a very linear kind of career, that after schooling, we get into a job. It's all pretty kind of predictable, but those things are going to go away. It may take a little bit more time, but we can already see that that's happening. And work would be, a lot of bright guys doesn't want to dedicate their time for one employer, isn't it? They want to do gig. And that's, you can see that extreme higher end of the talent spectrum, you can see that trend and see that, hey, they can leverage their time and contribute to different projects and with the different employees at the same time. So I think those are the trends that at least we can see that when it comes to thing. And to answer your question, one skill would be that you are learning agility.
Sarika, learning would be one. Definitely, learning is important. But if you restrict it to just learning, I think it'll fall flat because what you learn, what's the next step? How are you going to apply that into your organization? As a HR person, for example, you can be very studious, meaning you attend a lot of conferences, you read a lot of books, you have knowledge. But if you are not capable to apply that and make a difference to the workplace that you are part of, it doesn't matter at all. Right now, all organizations are going into a focus of making everything quantifiable, meaning making the output of HR people quantifiable.
Right.
You're answerable, for your outputs in a quarter. Everything revolves around your quarter performance. OKRs are set for quarter, not for a year. So when you're moving into that kind of a phase, your ability to make a difference to your workplace matters. So that can only come from learning. So whatever Santosh talked about, the learning aspects is definitely important, but there's a second step that they need to take too, and that's applicable for all the roles that in an organization.
Usha, if I can hear some, insights from you as well.
Yeah. One of our old HR heads used to speak about need to update your resume every year. And she didn't mean that you go apply somewhere else, but at least you look at yourself, at your skills. And like both Santosh and Arun said, one is what have you learned and what have you contributed? So that if you were
Yeah.
to be a brand that you're showcasing yourself, what is it that you bring to the table? If there are 10 other HR professionals, what is it that you do differently? I've seen a lot of people go after the latest tech certification. Everybody is doing it, so I also get a certificate. That may not necessarily be the best advice because soon the market is flooded with that particular certificate. Instead, if it's some particular skill that is relevant in your context, in your industry, even if it's just the deep domain expertise that you bring, you will be sought after. So doing a study of where you are and what are your strengths and building on that is extremely critical. And something that some people take for granted is they become complacent. 5 years down the line, they say, okay, I know everything in this particular field or in this organization, and they stop learning. They stop spotting the opportunities that are actually around them. Because once they are confident and comfortable in a particular space in an organization, that's the time if they pick up something adjacent, volunteer to do more, then they become the most critical people in a particular team. And as they grow up the chain, it's not just the technical skills that matter, it is the other skills that equally matter. How good are they at leading a team? How good are they at change management? How good are they at other aspects which necessarily don't come in a prescription format? They need to be always speaking to a manager or a mentor and figuring out that as they go along. So it's a long list, but the small messages don't become complacent and be ever on the watch out for opportunities both within and outside.
Right. So, just to bring in another element to our discussion. So, like we spoke about the trends that are available here. I mean, that we are, coping up each day. I have seen the performance management that we used to call traditionally, which then came to performance discussions, cultures, and all that. So, we all have seen, changes in approaching the performance management evaluation system, company to company, organization to organization. So multiple, some companies go with OKR, some companies go with the yearly appraisal systems and all that. But the one thing that stood out differently is continuous performance culture, which means they have performance conversations with their team members, be it managers, with their directors, executives, and all that. So they have continuous performance conversations. I mean, there are companies who have made it quarterly as well. So how does it help? Because looking at it from two point of views, like we spoke about the tech layoffs, are these companies getting ready, or making the employees also ready for a for a bad news to hear, or is it part of getting into that culture of like Usha said, upskilling yourself? What does it mean to us? It's a common question for all.
Just thinking, Sarika, there were a couple of things that you brought in. One was on the continuous evaluation, which I am a total, I'm for it. Though, in my organization, it's a half yearly H1 and H2 that you set OKRs and all that. However, with my team, it's an ongoing thing. Every week, each team member would have opportunities to have a discussion with me where I talk about the good things, I talk about the areas for improvement. So at the end of that half yearly period, uh, you don't actually need to have a formal discussion because that's what's been covered. Now you have a tool where you capture all your thoughts and all that just from an organizational standpoint, aligning to that point of view, because you don't wait till the half year to share your feedback about that person. You as a manager, it is your responsibility to ensure that they get the inputs from you if they're not doing well. If they're doing something good, give that on an instantaneous basis, because something which is delayed, I don't think it. When something good happens, give them the feedback. When something not so good happens, give them the feedback. When something doesn't, something is not working, it's a one-on-one feedback. If it's something good, let the other team members also know. So it's a continuous thing, so that at any given point in time, the team members are not in a position where there's a lot of gray area. They know, and it doesn't involve with just your team. It talks about, as a manager, you're responsible to convey what the organization is going through. What are the opportunities that we have as a team to contribute further? What are the things, that threats which we anticipate? Keep them updated. As a manager, I think that's my responsibility, to let them know what's happening. What are the things that we need to chip in and contribute, so that the organization can do better. I think as a manager, that's your primary responsibility, to be answerable to your team members and equip them so that they know what exactly they are going through, so that they don't go back home and think, I'm hearing a lot of negative vibes around. Is my organization going through a tough phase? Should I be looking at another opportunity because I fear for my job? Your team members should never be in that kind of a mode. And as an organization, I think right from the leadership team, we did that quite a bit, from the chairman to the CEO to the HR head. Every quarter, when we were going through the 2020 timeframe, every quarter they'll come up front through MS Team, connect with every employee, and anybody can ask any questions to them, whether it's tough or whatever, and it gets answered, which enabled the people to know that, okay, this is what it is. I know exactly what my company is going through, and it's good to stay back, because I know these are the initiatives that the organization is taking, which will enable us to survive this, and I'll be good, if I stick on, and my career is secure. I don't have to be bothered, each night when I try to sleep. This bothers me. That should never be.
What was the question exactly, Sarika?
So I was asking, companies moving to a continuous performance conversations as part of their performance management. Is it positive or negative?
Yeah, I think that's the way performance should be managed, isn't it? I think if you kind of remove all the frills, it's pretty much you hire somebody good, set the performance expectation, and you probably monitor, and you know that whether somebody accomplished the goal or not. So this is the kind of doesn't happen in silos. So that feedback loop can be consistent, and so there are various different dimensions to that. For example, there could be managers who are not very micromanaging, because they have confidence in the team that's performing on a particular task. They must have been working with them for a long time. So I think the feedback loop would be a little feeble there, because there is no specific performance concern emerging there. So they don't often impose themselves on the people with a performance feedback, because HR mandated that there should be continuous feedback. So the second thing is, most of the technology job generally kind of it is a little more measurable accurately. For example, if somebody is not coding well, it's full of bugs, that is pretty much identifiable in real time, and that feedback could be on real-time data rather than your feelings and emotions. So I think that there is quite a lot. There's nothing changed. I believe that all good managers have been managing performance closely, and there have been a continuous feedback loop. It's only in theory and it's only in articles that different flavors of performance management is emerging. But otherwise, all the good managers have been managing performance of their team by setting expectations, by coaching them, by mentoring them, and of course, providing constructive feedback whenever it's appropriate. That's my take on that. And that's very important because people need to know.
Maybe Usha, in parallel, if you may add your perspective to.
Right. I think there was the olden style of performance management, which I heard was part of the army system, is once a year someone wrote a report about you and it was filed away very confidentially, called the annual confidential report. We've come a long way since then with even tools helping easy capture of even day-to-day feedback or some notes which get shared with the team member. Because the very purpose of this performance management process is to make sure that you're doing better at your job, getting feedback at the right time and improving. There could be a fear in some quarters where they notice that if a person's performance is dipping, they could also be put on a performance improvement plan. And some people might correlate the annual or the cycle being broken up into quarters, meaning more potential to be put on a PIP. But I think it's actually just the reverse. You're giving a person feedback in the end of quarter one to improve by the end of quarter four. So people should just look at it positively. On occasion, if there's a person who doesn't improve, then obviously the consequences also follow.
Isn't it, Dusha? It's so difficult in technology management to wait for feedback, at the end of a quarter, because a failure with the client can be fatal for your organization. So generally, what I've seen at least in technology functions, feedbacks are generally real time. So they can't afford to wait.
Yeah, that was also my question. Sorry. That was also my, trigger of asking that negative impact of doing such things. So, will people take that as getting them ready for a bad news? So something that's because of the, tech layoffs or the bad news.
I think that's opposite. I think that's opposite. You have not been giving feedback, and one fine morning you are calling somebody for a feedback. That can trigger anxiety. Then somebody kind of closely working with you as a coach and giving you feedback. And that's much more healthier way to do that.
True. Yeah. So, maybe hovering from there. So we all agree that technological advancements have been happening at a rapid pace in recent years. And this trend is expected to continue beyond 2023 as well. So with the emergence of technologies like AI, artificial intelligence, or blockchain, Internet of Things, is the demand for skilled professionals in these areas going to increase, or will organizations be equipped, with upskilling existing talents to face this? What is your take on that?
I think it is the responsibility of individuals as well. The organizations typically that if an individual is actively managing his career, they have no other choice, isn't it? To learn what is relevant for today and tomorrow, and upskill themselves. And of course, the organization's learning and development department has a huge challenge in forecasting which way the technology is moving and prepping up their talent force to meet those talent demands. In fact, all these elements have been existing in organizations. I'm sure that organizations always traditionally have been very worried about upskilling their workforce. Just that today, the pace has increased. Earlier, probably you had time, but right now, before you think about it, the change is up in your face. Yeah, so that goes without saying. Both individuals as well as organizations have to be on their toes. And AI is going to change everything. It's going to change, including HR, isn't it? It's going to change medical profession. It's going to change, it's going to be autonomous cars. I don't know which area it's not going to be. Not there are robotic waiters in hotels in some part of the world. So yeah, so that is going to be the reality. And I'm sure that people are kind of realizing it. Organizations are definitely realizing it and working towards that.
Yeah, and I can vouch that because I could see a chapter on AI, on my second standard daughter, and I was really flabbergasted at that questions. Is this AI at second standard? Student. It starts there. And I can also say that there are many schools. Or I think almost majority of the schools in Kerala also have started this, no examination until 5th, and they have an opportunity to, concentrate or focus on one particular area or one particular subject, maybe from 5th grade onwards, so that they can be experts in whatever they want to, when they become professionals in the future. So I think, that's where we are going to, be an expert or be the master of whatever you want to aspire as a career or as a professional in your upcoming. Yeah, so I was just
and fortunately or unfortunately, that's not a one-time effort. That's a problem. It's going to be a continuous, lifelong pursuit to upskill yourself.
Absolutely.
Probably, I might play the a contra view into it. I knew this AI Sarika is going to bring it up before we end this conversation. So I have a slightly different view, not against AI or chat GPT and all that which comes in. But let me put a point across. It's for each one of us on this platform. For example, let's talk from a HR point of view. You're starting a new organization where you need a lot of things, templates, offer letter, and all that. You can use ChatGPT to put that query, and it'll as long as you put a lot of description into it, they'll give it an offer letter saying that JD template and all that. But as a HR person, okay, are you going to take that as the best thing that is available to you? You might be very surprised that you might end up in a big mess. For example, an offer letter. There are legal aspects because it's an agreement between a candidate and an organization. Do you want to trust an AI to ensure that all the aspects that an organization as well as an employee are going to be covered? The base thing can come from the AI, but if you don't have the intelligence to use your intelligence to look through it, refine it based on what your needs are, and then make that as a final. I think it's not AI is cannot replace human intelligence. You need to work. You can use that for your advantage, meaning you don't have to recreate a lot of things. JD and all that would be available, but then use your intelligence on top of that to make it the final product, which would work for you. So, which means all of that is good. It's there to help human, wherever interventions are required, but it's not going to replace based on what we have seen at this point in time. Maybe it will, but not anytime soon. That's my view.
Yeah, the discussion was not AI is going to take over, the human relevance or importance. What we told that it's going to be increasingly present in every profession, and that brings up a lot of opportunities. Someone has to create that intelligence. Someone has to work on that pattern recognition, isn't it? So that brings up a whole lot of technological challenges and opportunities for technology guys.
So is the demand for such skilled professionals?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
moving
Yeah.
world.
To create better AI. Who said that ChatGPT is going to stop there? They are going to continuously work and going to better at it. And at one point in time, Arun, it can clearly anything that involves pattern. AI is going to do a far better job than,
repetitive things.
yeah,
I agree.
kind of.
Usha, if we can hear from you as well on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think even we are living through it right now. If we were to use an engagement bot, for instance, it doesn't replace the HRBP finally meeting, but it does reduce our bandwidth in terms of figuring out who to prioritize in a connect. Similarly, in recruitment, I think 20 years ago, we manually looked at resumes and created a database and then went on to interview. And right now we skip a couple of steps because the database is throwing up based on a particular profile, the most relevant candidates. So like you mentioned, there's a huge scope for us, even in HR, to know the basics of the domain and then apply it or get someone who's technically skilled to design solutions for us, which definitely means that there's an opportunity for a skilled HR and there's an opportunity for a skilled technologist who understands the domain and gets solutions. So it's actually all the more emphasizing the need to upskill both sides.
Yeah, so there's no point in being pessimistic about all this advancement. I think that would, of course, it will have sudden impact on employability of certain category of people, but that would bring up a whole lot of different kind of job along with that, basically. So, for example, take cloud computing. It brought up a lot of different new opportunities for a lot of people. I'm saying that if to get a good SRE and platform engineering for today's market, they're highly wanted. So I think that every technology change brings up a lot of opportunities for technology, and that's going to be a continuous trend, isn't it? Nobody has seen the future. How is it going to take shape? We can only take consolation that, hey, it's all coming up and the pace has increased.
Yeah, I agree. So, in continuation to that, maybe people who are listening to our session would also look forward to hear from the panelist about the hybrid work and the distributed teams across and the ability to work effectively in a virtual environment and also collaborate with others. Being very critical at this moment. So, how can we, or what is your take on retaining talents or acquiring new talents in this new hybrid work culture as well?
Sarika, I think the world embraced the change in 2020 when it was thrown at us. We didn't have a choice to adapt. But as this phase of remote working continues, much beyond what we initially thought was a temporary phase, I think it needs us to be adapt to just the new mode of working. We ourselves know people in our teams who prefer not to put on their camera during Zoom calls. We know people who switch off and focus only on work. We have to remind managers to connect on non-work related topics. We hear news that it affects collaboration, and we sometimes see some breakdowns where a situation that could have been solved in 5 minutes, had all the people been physically together, takes a little longer because there was some misunderstanding or some breakdown in communication. So the challenge continues. How do you create an open, conducive environment, which is almost as if you were working in the same room together? I think there are two parts to it. One is, of course, the technically, how do you enable people to collaborate more? But more importantly is how do you remind people that we are humans first and machines later? So while work will continue, there needs to be some reminders to connect as humans so that the rest of it continues smoothly.
I think as managers, like Usha said, from 2020, it's been a different challenge altogether. Your team is spread out. You're not co-located. Traditionally, a co-located team, are the ones who, they can work together and get to a solution quickly. Now, when you are spread out, you're not physically present in one location. It's a different kind of challenge. So that managers need to manage remotely much better compared to how it was before. Um, Technology dependency has increased because without a collaborative tool, it becomes tough. So. I think last couple of years that's seen, that collaboration can be achieved. It's a different skill set altogether to bring everybody to work together, irrespective of which location. So I think that's one of the skill sets that's required to make people work, because you can't insist of bringing people back together. Because I've heard feedback from my team saying that, okay, this particular company is insisting everybody come back to work, and we are getting a lot of resumes from that company. So people are not flexible to go back to the old way of going to office every day, because there's so much saving when you work from home, in terms of commute, in terms of not spending money on gas to get to office and all that. So things have changed for. I don't know whether it's for the better, but the work equation has changed completely. So managers would need to adhere to the new demand of getting work done uh, through a remote workforce, and that's there to stay.
I think one of the most beautiful thing or outcome of what happened to the world of work out of pandemic is that it proved that a lot of managers have this notion that if people are not physically present, they won't deliver. It proved that people are responsible and they take their work very seriously and they deliver. And nobody wants to be laggard. So in my own personal experience, our biggest problem was at one point in time, people are stretching way beyond the need, their regular duty hours. It's not the other way. The problem was not the other way around. The problem was that people are focusing, because the transition was so sudden. So in that acclimatization process, people were stretching like crazy. They were foregoing all out of their personal priorities and putting work as a top priority. And that's a beautiful exemplary show of human spirit, according to me. Earlier, working from home means it's a joke, isn't it? Somebody's having a fun. When you hear that somebody working from home, oh yeah, you're having fun. No, people work. People seriously work. So it is culturally, if you have certain issue, you think that people are working certain kind of project that needs more close collaboration. As Usha said, that they need to be one room. Yeah, there is a lot of merit in that argument that people have to come and work there. But making a blanket statement like Arun was saying that certain organization making it compulsory, mandated to come back, etc. If they have reasons, that's fine, but it shouldn't be that should not emanate from a lack of trust. That people are not serious about their work. That's my experience. It is not a philosophy. It's my experience during this pandemic. People really kind of cared about their work and delivered. And I don't know whether organizations have really gave that care back. Employees gave so much. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, pretty much all of us are on the same page on this topic. Yeah, so now that we are getting closer to our conclusion. So maybe one, critical question or major aspect that we would want to discuss and just hear from you, panelists, is while we focus on acquiring and retaining talent, what are we doing to make our workplace an inclusive one as well? So by which I mean to ask, do we really make conscious efforts to create job for diverse talents in the tech industry? Just
I think one of you can start off by answering that. I think the question was clear.
The question was, what are organizations doing to make the workplace more inclusive? That's a
Correct.
question, isn't
That's
it?
right. That's right.
That's
Sorry
right.
if I was broken. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
You want to go?
I think different organizations are in different stages of their journey towards becoming more inclusive. I think step one is everyone is now aware of the need to become inclusive in the approach. Initially, it was only gender-based initiatives. Now there are efforts to try and include people with disability, veterans, uh, any other community that was feeling displaced or not wanted. Frankly, while sometimes it comes across as good branding efforts, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to make such efforts successful. Even a topic like gender, which was the first that came on the agenda, there's so much more that can be done, not just in terms of training, but in sensitizing the entire environment about the need in the first place for why. There are still questions asked in some workplaces as to why we need to be more inclusive. It just makes business sense. If you have diverse perspectives at work, your product or your solutions are more diverse and they reach out to the market that much quicker. What is not often understood is that diversity, managing it, has its own challenges and it's not always a smooth journey. If you want people with disability, you need to invest in equipment, in making your workplace safe, etc. So it's in a nutshell, it is great that companies have begun the journey towards being more inclusive, but there's a long way to go because there's so much more that can be done.
Yeah.
Great points, Usha. Uh, as a person who was responsible for the recruitment needs, I had a lot of challenges when hiring managers used to say, okay, we want people from this particular city, um, all that. So there are a lot of constraints into the hiring where it's not just a skill set, location, all that. And that's when the pandemic hit, and the CEO came in. My CEO came in, made the statement: hire talent which meets your requirement. Doesn't matter which location in the globe that you recruit from. Doesn't matter what background. Nothing. No constraints. Just focus on the skill set. Are they able to fulfill the requirements for this role? That should be the only consideration. It doesn't matter where the person is, which nationality. We'll work. Immigration and working from home, working from whichever country that they are in. It makes much more easier compared to how our mindset was before. So no constraints whatsoever. The only consideration should be the skill set. If it matches what our requirements is, you hire. And that was not a statement to me. It was a statement to all the leadership team in the company. I should not hear that, okay, we have constraints with respect to that. Eastern Europe, Africa, Middle East, APAC region, whatever, it doesn't matter. Well, and as an organization, we've always been, I think I think we have a huge percentage of women employees in the company that I'm representing. We've never had that problem at all. From a gender ratio point of view, we have had a great percentage of women there. So giving opportunities, for I think we've been very inclusive, especially. And that's what the world or the workplace demands, and we are putting in our effort to make it as inclusive as possible.
So I think it's a great point, Usha and Arun. I think I see two aspects to that. One is that maybe it's easier to create a recruitment policy, say that you need to be inclusive or we are inclusive and we need to hire certain percentage of people from different category from society. But I think the even bigger challenges for HR is that culturally, how inclusive are you? Once those kind of people come into your workplace, do they feel included? That is a larger challenge. I see that, So you need to create your organization very civil for people really feel that they're included. I think, that part is going to be a key thing if you really want to leverage the inclusion programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great points. I think, we had one question from Anish on, I think, hiring from multiple locations. So how would the legal basis work when we hire from many locations for India, for work for India based company? I think that was a question for Arun when you were talking about.
Okay, Anish, so when we roll out an agreement or an offer to an employee, it would say you can work from any location in India. However, you are aligned to one of the offices that we have. So either Trivandrum, Cochin, Bangalore, or Chennai, these are the places where we have an office and we have a registered entity there. Their offer letter would be aligned to one of these places. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, sorry. This is mostly around global locations. It's suppose South Africa, Kenya, and those kind of places. No, so how do we look at? I know there are companies like Atlas and all who claim to be able to support this kind of stuff. Has they been of any use? Or that's where the question comes from. Not within India alone, but let's say I have a company based out of Technopark, but I have people working from let's say Ukraine and a lot of places, maybe about 7 countries across the world.
Okay, maybe I'll give my view into what we have been doing. For example, I talked about hiring from Eastern Europe. So we have a registered entity in UK. We have in France. So looks at, we might not be able to hire them as employees. We might be able to hire them as consultants aligned to that particular entity in Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be.
Wonderful. Got it.
Sure. I think, with the time that we were allotted, I think we were able to discuss the gamut of things that we were supposed to. And, let's just, conclude this with a rapid fire if the panelists are all okay. I don't have many questions. It's just one question. Maybe I would request the panelists to answer in one word to describe talent in 2023 and beyond. Arun, to start with you.
One word, demanding.
Usha?
Opportunities.
Santosh?
Yeah, opportunities.
Great. So thank you so much, all of you. I hope our discussions and contemplation has, covered all aspects of talents in tech industry. Overall, it's judicious to say that the future of talent and technology looks bright with exciting opportunities for those who are skilled and adaptable to the changing landscape, like all of you have commented. I'm sure the world is dynamic and so are our efforts to acclimatize with also, be transforming. So, however, being part of this wonderful HR fraternity, I can vouch that we will find way to power through these, tough times. And HR is one single team, I'm sure we all would agree, who are looked up for solutions. And for that reason alone, I think we all need to be equipped and well apprised. And with that, we look forward to more such sessions and panel discussions to keep all of us on the same page and grow each moment, both with knowledge and with audacity to enable business to grow and prosper the way it envisages. So thanks, eminent panel members, Arun, Santosh, and Usha, for your time and insights. It was great to gather and exchange thoughts. And thanks to all who has joined us today from, on various platforms. We will keep the group updated about our upcoming sessions. Thank you all. I hope there are no more questions in the chat box. Sure. So it's all thank you messages. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thanks, Sarika, for hosting this. Thank you.
Thank you.